The nursery did not look like a place for new life. It looked like a tomb. The steady electronic beeping of medical monitors echoed off imported marble walls, cold, clinical. The kind of sound that measured time in heartbeats, each one potentially the last. Nathaniel Blackthorne stood motionless beside the state-of-the-art incubator, his 6'4" frame casting a long shadow across the sterile white linens. 300 years of existence had taught him many things: how to build empires from blood and ambition, how to command armies of immortals with a single glance, how to survive plagues, wars, and the endless political machinations of vampire nobility. But none of it had prepared him for this. Inside the temperature-controlled incubator lay his son, Lucian, 2 weeks old, dying. The infant's skin had taken on a translucent quality, like parchment stretched too thin over fragile bones. Each shallow breath made his tiny ribcage visibly contract. The IV lines running into his impossibly small veins delivered nutrients that his hybrid body violently rejected within hours. The medical waste bins overflowed with blood-stained gauze and empty syringes. Nathaniel's hands gripped the edge of the incubator. His knuckles had gone white. If he had still been human, they would have cracked under the pressure. Dr. Victor Alden stood across from him, silver-haired and hollow-eyed. The man was 73 years old, a specialist in supernatural biology, one of only 5 humans on Earth who understood vampire physiology well enough to treat hybrid children. His credentials spanned decades. His successes were legendary. None of it mattered now. "His organ functions are dropping, Mr. Blackthorne." The doctor's voice carried the weight of a man delivering a death sentence he had tried everything to prevent. "The intravenous nutrients aren't metabolizing. The Dampier mutation his stomach lining is rejecting the human formula. His red blood cell count is too unstable to process the synthetic blood we've tried." Nathaniel did not look up. He kept his eyes fixed on his son's face. Lucian's eyes were closed, the lids so thin that the network of veins beneath them was visible. Violet eyes when they opened, neither human brown nor vampire crimson, something entirely new, something dying. "We are out of options," Dr. Alden said quietly. The words hung in the air like poison. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. The muscles in his face shifted, ancient power rippling just beneath the carefully controlled surface. His eyes flashed crimson for just a fraction of a second before he forced them back to slate gray. "You are telling me," Nathaniel said, each word measured and precise, "that in the year 2026, with billions of dollars at my disposal, my son is going to starve to death in his own crib." The doctor looked at the floor. "I am so sorry, Nathaniel. He has perhaps 48 hours. 48 hours? 2 days. Nathaniel closed his eyes. Behind his eyelids another scene played out. Not this sterile nursery, but a hospital room at Lenox Hill. 2 weeks ago. Bright surgical lights, the smell of blood and antiseptic. Isabel on the operating table, her auburn hair dark with sweat, her hand gripping his with human strength that still somehow made him feel anchored to this world. The obstetrician's urgent voice. "Mr. Blackthorne, there are complications, severe hemorrhaging. We can save one, but not both. You need to decide, now." Isabel's eyes meeting his, brown eyes warm and alive and terrified, her voice barely a whisper. "Save our baby. Promise me." He had promised. She had died 4 minutes later. And now the child she had sacrificed everything to bring into this world was slipping away ounce by ounce, breath by breath. Nathaniel opened his eyes. The crimson did not return. Only exhaustion remained. The kind of weariness that came from fighting a battle you knew you could not win. "Leave us," he said. Dr. Alden hesitated, then nodded. He gathered his charts and left the nursery without another word. The heavy oak door closed with a soft click. Nathaniel was alone with his dying son. He reached through the incubator's portal, his hand impossibly large next to the infant's tiny form. His finger touched Lucian's cheek. The skin was cool. Too cool. Even for a vampire child it was wrong. "I failed you," Nathaniel whispered. "I failed your mother. I chose you, and I still failed." The monitors continued their steady rhythm. Beep, 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 counting down to silence. 3 floors below, in the servants' wing of the sprawling Hudson Valley estate, Elara Ashford scrubbed the antique mahogany baseboards with mechanical precision. She had been hired 3 days ago, a last-minute replacement for a housemaid who had quit without notice. The pay was extraordinary, nearly triple the going rate for domestic work. The agency had been vague about the reasons. Something about a difficult employer, high turnover, strict confidentiality requirements. Elara did not care about any of that. She needed the money. More importantly, she needed the distraction. She wore the standard gray uniform, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her hands moved through the cleaning routine automatically, muscle memory taking over while her mind drifted somewhere far away. Somewhere dark. 4 weeks ago, in a small clinic in Queens, she had given birth to a baby girl. Rosalie. Stillborn. The clinical term was genetic incompatibility. The doctors had used other words too. Rare mutation, chromosomal abnormality, 1 in 10 million. They had offered sympathies and grief counseling referrals and discharge paperwork. They had not been able to explain why her perfectly healthy pregnancy had ended in silence, why her daughter had never drawn a single breath. Elara's body had not received the memo that her child was gone. Her breasts still produced milk, painful constant for a baby she would never hold. She wore tight compression garments and thick nursing pads under her uniform, enduring the physical ache as penance. A reminder. The grief was too large to process, so her body processed it for her, one agonizing letdown reflex at a time. She heard the other staff members whisper about the master of the house, Nathaniel Blackthorne, billionaire, CEO of Blackthorne Global, rumored to have connections to organized crime or perhaps something darker. The older housekeepers warned her in hushed tones, never look him in the eye. Stay away from the West Wing, do not ask questions about the baby. The baby. Elara had heard the crying on her first day. Thin, reedy, desperate. The massive halls of the estate carried sound in strange ways, echoing off marble and mahogany. She had been polishing silver in the dining room when she heard it. A newborn's cry, weak, fading. Her milk had let down immediately, soaking through her pads. A phantom pain had shot through her chest. Every time she heard that cry over the past 3 days, her body betrayed her, responding to a child that was not hers, could never be hers. Today, the crying had stopped. Elara paused mid-scrub, her hand going still on the baseboard. She listened. The estate was silent except for the distant hum of the heating system and the tick of an antique grandfather clock. No crying. That was worse. She knew what silence meant. She had experienced it herself in that clinic room in Queens, the sudden horrible absence of sound where there should have been a baby's first wail. Elara stood up, her knees aching from kneeling on the hardwood floor. She looked down the long hallway toward the West Wing, the forbidden area. She thought about Rosalie, about the weight of an infant who would never grow heavy, about empty arms in a nursery full of unused baby clothes. Her feet began moving before her mind could stop them. The West Wing was deserted. Elara walked past priceless oil paintings and antique furniture, her soft-soled shoes making no sound on the Persian runners. The hallway felt longer than it should have been, stretching out like something from a fever dream. 2 men in dark suits stood outside a set of heavy oak doors. Security. They were massive, well over 6 feet, with the kind of stillness that suggested military training, or something else. Their eyes tracked her approach with unsettling focus. Elara clutched her basket of clean linens like a shield. I'm here to change the medical linens," she said. Her voice sounded small in the cavernous hallway. The guards exchanged a glance. One of them reached for the door handle. Elara's heart hammered in her chest. This was insane. She was going to be fired, arrested. But she could not turn back. The silence from beyond those doors pulled at something primal inside her. The door swung open. The nursery was freezing. The temperature had been lowered to preserve the medical equipment, the IV fluids, the carefully calibrated environment for a dying child. Elara's breath misted in front of her face as she stepped inside. The room was empty of people, just machines, monitors, and an incubator in the center surrounded by medical equipment that belonged in a hospital, not a home. Elara approached slowly. Inside the incubator lay the smallest human being she had ever seen. A boy, dark hair impossibly thick for a newborn, skin so pale it was almost translucent. He was not moving. For a horrible moment Elara thought she was too late. Then his eyes fluttered open. Violet. Not blue, not brown. Violet like amethyst catching light. The infant's mouth opened in a silent gasp. His tiny chest heaved with the effort of breathing. He was searching for something, rooting, the instinctive movement of a newborn looking for food. Elara felt the familiar sharp pain in her breasts. Let-down reflex immediate and overwhelming. Her milk was coming in triggered by nothing more than proximity to a starving child. She looked at the bags of synthetic blood hanging from IV poles, the untouched bottles of premium formula, the monitors tracking a life slipping away. None of it was working. Her hands moved to the latch on the side of the incubator. She knew this was wrong, knew she could be killed for this. The whispers about Nathaniel Blackthorne were not just gossip. There was something dangerous about this place, about this family. But she could not let another baby die, not if there was even the smallest chance. Elara opened the incubator. The baby's eyes locked onto her with startling intensity. His nostrils flared. Some deep primal instinct seemed to take over. He turned his head toward her mouth, opening wider. She lifted him out. He was shockingly light, barely 5 pounds. His skin was cool against her hands. Elara sat down in the rocking chair beside the incubator. Her fingers trembled as she unbuttoned her uniform. The nursing pads underneath were already soaked. She removed them, exposing herself in the cold room. The baby's cry finally came, weak, barely audible, but desperate. Elara brought him to her breast. He latched on with shocking strength. The pain was sharp, immediate, but it faded within seconds, replaced by a deep, overwhelming wave of relief. The physical pressure that had built up for weeks began to ease as the infant suckled with desperate rhythmic intensity. Elara gasped. Tears spilled down her cheeks, hot against her cold skin. They fell onto the baby's dark hair. "Oh," she whispered. "Oh, you poor thing. You were just hungry." The sound of him swallowing filled the quiet room, loud, greedy, alive. She watched in amazement as color began to return to his skin. The grayish tint receded, replaced by the faintest flush of pink. His breathing deepened, steadied. The heart monitor, which had been tracking a dangerously slow rhythm, began to beep faster, stronger. A healthy newborn's heartbeat. Elara was so absorbed in the miracle happening in her arms that she did not notice the temperature in the room dropping even further. She did not hear the oak doors close. She only felt the sudden suffocating presence behind her. A voice low and vibrating with barely controlled rage spoke from the shadows. "What in God's name are you doing?" Elara froze. Slowly she turned her head. Standing in the doorway was Nathaniel Blackthorne. He did not look like a billionaire. He looked like something from a nightmare. His eyes were burning crimson luminous in the dim light. His canine teeth had extended into fangs resting against his lower lip. The veins beneath his eyes were dark and prominent, throbbing with a fury that made the air itself feel heavy. He was staring at Elara with an expression of pure, lethal intent. "Mr. Blackthorne, Elara stammered. Instinct made her curl her body over the feeding infant, shielding him. In a blur of motion too fast for human eyes to track, Nathaniel was suddenly standing over her. He gripped her shoulder fingers, digging into her flesh like iron clamps. "You dare touch my son!" The words came out as a snarl. "You dare bring your filthy human disease near him!" He raised his other hand. Elara flinched, certain he was about to strike her. But then Nathaniel stopped. His supernatural senses, finally catching up with his rage, registered what was happening. The sound, the steady rhythmic gulping, the strong, robust beating of Lucian's heart. A sound he had not heard since the day the boy was born. Nathaniel's eyes moved from Elara's terrified face down to his son. Lucian was not choking, not convulsing, not dying. He was feeding. The infant's tiny hands were gripping the fabric of Alara's uniform. His eyes were closed in contentment. His chest rose and fell with deep, even breaths. Nathaniel's grip on Alara's shoulder loosened. The crimson slowly faded from his eyes, replaced by shock. Disbelief. Something that might have been hope, if hope were not such a fragile, dangerous thing. He dropped to his knees beside the rocking chair. The Vampire King, the man who commanded boardrooms and underworld councils, knelt on the floor of his son's nursery. His face was inches from Alara's breast, watching his child feed. He's keeping it down," Nathaniel whispered. His voice trembled. "He hasn't thrown up." Alara's heart was still racing, but she found her voice. "He was starving, sir. I heard him crying every day since I started working here. I couldn't just let him die." She took a shaking breath. "I know I overstepped. I know I'm just a maid. But my body, I lost my daughter 4 weeks ago. I still have milk. I had to try." Nathaniel looked up from the baby to Alara's face, really looked at her. He saw the dark circles under her eyes, the raw grief etched into her features, the fierce protective way she held a child that was not hers. He inhaled deeply. His expression changed. The rage evaporated, replaced by something Alara could not quite identify. Awe, perhaps, or recognition. "Who are you?" he asked. All the venom had drained from his voice. Ilara Ashford," she replied softly. She gently rubbed the baby's back as he began to slow his feeding, his eyelids growing heavy. Nathaniel reached out with one hand, his long fingers touching his son's cheek with impossible gentleness. It was warm. For the first time in 2 weeks, Lucian was warm. A shuddering breath escaped Nathaniel's lips. He stood up slowly, his towering frame casting a shadow over them both. He did not yell, did not call for security. Instead, he removed his Tom Ford suit jacket and carefully draped it over Alara's bare shoulder to cover her. "You are no longer a maid, Miss Ashford," Nathaniel said. His tone left no room for argument. "You are moving into the master wing. You will not leave my son's side." He paused, his gray eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "And heaven help anyone who tries to stop you." By morning, the nursery had been transformed. Dr. Alden and his team of specialists arrived to find their equipment being systematically dismantled. Nathaniel, his voice terrifyingly calm, instructed them to pack everything and leave. The cold clinical ICU setup was gone. The room was flooded with natural morning light. The temperature had been raised to a comfortable 72 degrees. Alara found herself relocated from the cramped basement servants' quarters to a suite 3 times the size of her entire queen's apartment. High ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson, a 4-poster bed that could have slept 4 people. A connecting door led directly to Lucian's nursery. Her cheap gray uniforms had been replaced overnight. The closet now held silk loungewear, cashmere sweaters, designer labels she had only seen in magazine ads. But the luxury felt like a trap. 2 men in dark suits stood outside her door at all times. She was not allowed to leave the wing without escort. Her phone had been confiscated, replaced with a new device that only had 3 contacts: Nathaniel, Dr. Alden, and estate security. She was a prisoner in a gilded cage. The most unnerving presence, however, was Nathaniel himself. He never left. The Vampire King, who supposedly ran a global empire, had abandoned his corner office in Manhattan. He remained in the nursery, seated in an armchair in the corner. His attention never wavered. He observed every feeding session, every diaper change, every breath. It should have felt invasive. It did feel invasive. But there was something else beneath the intensity, something that looked like gratitude and fear. On the 3rd day, Alara was feeding Lucian in the rocking chair when Nathaniel finally spoke. "You have not eaten your lunch." His deep voice broke the comfortable silence. He nodded toward a silver tray on the mahogany table. Filet mignon, roasted vegetables, food she could never have afforded on her own. "I'm not very hungry, Mr. Blackthorne," Alara murmured, burping Lucian over her shoulder. The baby had gained nearly half a pound. His skin glowed with health. Nathaniel stood up from his chair. He crossed the room with that silent, predatory grace that reminded her he was not entirely human. He stopped directly in front of her. "You are sustaining my son with your own body," he said quietly. "You will eat, or I will sit here and feed you myself." He paused. "And it is Nathaniel. Do not call me Mr. Blackthorne again." Alara looked up, meeting his piercing gray eyes. The power dynamic between them was impossibly skewed. He owned everything, could kill her with his bare hands, and yet somehow he was entirely at her mercy. If her milk stopped, his son died. "Why is this working, Nathaniel?" Alara asked. The question had been building for days. "Dr. Alden said Lucian could not digest human formula. Why can he digest my milk?" Nathaniel sighed. He ran a hand through his dark hair, suddenly looking very tired. "Alden ran tests," he said slowly, "on the few drops of milk left on Lucian's lips that first night." He met her eyes. "You are not entirely human, Alara." She blinked. "Excuse me, I was born in Syracuse. My parents were accountants." "Genetics are complicated." Nathaniel leaned against the changing table. "Have you ever heard of the Aurelian bloodline?" Alara shook her head. "In the late 1700s there was a sect of humans whose blood carried a unique enzyme. To vampires, Aurelian blood was like an elixir. It cured sickness, enhanced our strength, allowed for peaceful coexistence between our species." Nathaniel's expression darkened. They were hunted to extinction by rival vampire clans who wanted to hoard that power, or so we thought. He took a step closer. The air between them grew thick. "The trait is recessive, extremely rare, but the trauma of your recent pregnancy must have triggered a mutation in your biology. Your breast milk is not just feeding Lucian, it is actively repairing his cellular structure at a genetic level." Nathaniel's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "You are the only creature on this earth who can keep him alive." The weight of his words settled on Alara's shoulders like a physical thing. "So, what happens to me when he doesn't need milk anymore?" Her voice was small. Nathaniel's hand reached out. His knuckles lightly brushed against her cheek. The touch was cold but somehow gentle. It sent an unexpected jolt down her spine. "You think I would ever let you leave after this?" His gray eyes burned with quiet intensity. "You saved my bloodline. You are under my protection now. Forever." It sounded like a vow. It also sounded like a threat. But Nathaniel was not the only one who realized what was happening inside the Blackthorne estate. Across the city, in a penthouse overlooking Central Park, Morgana Ravencroft swirled a glass of red wine. She was a vision of lethal elegance, dark hair swept into a flawless chignon, a crimson designer gown that cost more than most people's cars. A trembling man knelt on her Persian rug. "Are you certain?" Morgana's voice was silk over steel. "Yes, Lady Ravencroft," the informant stammered. "The Blackthorne baby is alive, thriving. They say he found a wet nurse." Morgana's eyes narrowed. "A human wet nurse keeping a dhampir alive? Impossible." She paused, her mind calculating centuries of forbidden knowledge. "Unless he found an Aurelian." She set her wineglass down with a sharp clink. "If Nathaniel Blackthorne has an Aurelian in his possession, his power will become absolute. We cannot allow that." She smiled. It was not a kind expression. "Find out who this woman is, and bring her to me. Alive." Time moved differently inside the master wing of the Blackthorne estate. 2 weeks passed, measured not in days, but in ounces. Each feeding session was logged, monitored, celebrated like a small victory in a war against death itself. Lucian transformed before their eyes. The translucent, ghostly infant became a robust baby with round cheeks and strong lungs. His violet eyes tracked movement. His tiny hands gripped Alara's finger with surprising strength. The heart monitor that had once tracked a failing rhythm now registered the steady, powerful beat of a thriving child. For Alara, the gilded cage became something else. Not quite home, not quite prison, something in between. She woke each morning in silk sheets that cost more than her monthly rent in Queens. She dressed in cashmere and Italian wool. A Michelin-starred chef prepared her meals, each one carefully calibrated with iron-rich foods, organic proteins, dark leafy greens. Everything designed to ensure her milk supply remained abundant. But it was Nathaniel's constant presence that defined her new existence. He abandoned Blackthorn Global entirely. The glass skyscraper in Manhattan ran itself under the board of directors while Nathaniel remained in the nursery. Always there. A sentinel. At first it had been unnerving. Now Ilara found herself looking for him when he briefly left the room. The weight of his attention had become familiar, comforting in a strange way. They talked during the long nights. Lucian would fall asleep at Ilara's breast milk, drunk and peaceful. Nathaniel would sit in his leather armchair, a glass of scotch laced with something dark and red resting on the side table, and they would speak in low voices, careful not to wake the baby. He told her about Isabel, his wife, human, an art curator he had met at a gallery opening in Soho 5 years ago. She had not known what he was at first. When he finally told her, she had laughed. Actually laughed. Called him ridiculous. Made him prove it. Their courtship had been unconventional. Their marriage impossible. The Vampire Council had forbidden it. Nathaniel had married her anyway. She knew the pregnancy was dangerous, Nathaniel said one night, staring into his glass. Hybrid births have a 90% mortality rate. For the mother, the child, or both. I begged her not to try. He paused. She told me she would rather die trying to give me a family than live forever as just the two of us. Ilara listened, rocking Lucian gently. She sounds brave. She was stubborn. A ghost of a smile crossed Nathaniel's face. Fierce, like you. The comparison made something warm bloom in Ilara's chest. She told him about Rosalie, about the perfect pregnancy. The nursery she had painted herself soft yellow with white clouds on the ceiling. The name she and Silas had chosen together. Rosalie Grace Hartwell. She told him about the 42 hours of labor. About the silence when there should have been crying. The doctor said it was genetic incompatibility, Ilara whispered. Something in my DNA that rejected hers. They could not explain it. Nathaniel's expression had darkened. Because they did not know what you are. What I am. Ilara looked down at Lucian, sleeping peacefully. An Aurelian. I still do not understand what that means. It means you are extraordinary. Nathaniel leaned forward, elbows on his knees. It means your daughter's death was not random chance. It was biology. The Aurelian gene is incompatible with pure human DNA. But with vampire DNA, he gestured to Lucian, it creates something stronger than either species alone. The knowledge sat heavy in Ilara's chest. Rosalie had died because of what Ilara was, but Lucian lived for the same reason. Grief and purpose intertwined. One night, as Ilara finished feeding Lucian, Nathaniel taught her basic vampire politics, the High Council, the territorial divisions, the ancient laws that governed supernatural society. You need to understand the world you are in now, he said seriously. Knowledge is protection. Am I in danger? Ilara asked. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Anyone who knows what you are will either want to use you or eliminate you. The Council will see you as a threat to the balance of power. He stood crossing to the window. The Hudson glittered in the moonlight below. I have made enemies, Ilara, powerful ones, and now you are tied to me, to Lucian. That makes you a target. Ilara should have been terrified. Instead, she felt something else, a strange sense of belonging, purpose. For the first time since Rosalie's death, she had a reason to wake up each morning. Then teach me how to survive, she said quietly. Nathaniel turned his gray eyes, reflecting the moonlight. I will. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Nathaniel's head of security, a massive vampire named Marcus, entered the nursery with a tablet. His expression was grim. Sir, intelligence just flagged something. You need to see this. Nathaniel took the tablet. His eyes scanned the screen. Ilara watched his expression shift from confusion to fury in the span of 3 seconds. What is it? She asked. Nathaniel looked at her. For the first time since that initial night, she saw his eyes flash crimson. "Your former partner, Silas Hartwell." The name made Ilara's stomach drop. "What about him?" Nathaniel handed her the tablet. The screen showed a classified intelligence report, photographs, background checks, financial records, but it was the header that made Ilara's hands start to shake. Subject: Silas Hartwell alias. True identity: Silas Thorne. Familiar. Handler: Morgana Ravencroft. Ilara's vision blurred. She read it again, and again. Familiar. A human bound by blood oath to serve a vampire master. "No." Her voice was barely a whisper. "No, that's not possible. We were together for 2 years. We lived together. She looked at the photographs. Silas entering Morgana's penthouse. Silas meeting with vampire operatives. Silas at a medical facility handing over vials of blood. Her blood. The routine checkups during her pregnancy. The blood tests. She had trusted him to take her samples to the lab. He had taken them to Morgana instead. "He was planted," Nathaniel said, his voice tight with controlled rage. "Morgana has been searching for Aurelian bloodlines for decades. She uses familiars to infiltrate human medical databases, flagging genetic anomalies. When you got pregnant, your blood work must have triggered an alert." Ilara felt like she was drowning. "Silas was not your boyfriend, Ilara." Nathaniel's voice was gentler now, seeing her devastation. "He was your handler, sent to monitor you, to ensure any child was brought directly to Morgana for study." The tablet slipped from Ilara's hands. 2 years. 2 years of her life with a man she had loved, or thought she had loved. The apartment they had shared. The future they had planned. The nights she had cried in his arms after Rosalie died. All of it. Every moment. A lie. "Where is he now?" Ilara asked. Her voice sounded hollow. "Disappeared. 3 days after you lost the baby. He knew the mission was compromised and fled before Morgana could punish him for failing to secure the genetic material." Marcus spoke from the doorway. "He left behind DNA samples, hair, skin cells. That is how Morgana's people bypassed our security wards. They used his genetic signature as a cipher." Nathaniel's hands clenched into fists. Ilara stood up slowly. She walked to the nursery window, staring out at the manicured grounds below. Her reflection in the glass looked like a stranger. She thought about Silas, about his smile when she told him she was pregnant, about the way he had held her hand during the ultrasound, about his absence at the clinic when Rosalie was born dead. He had not been there, because it was not his job to comfort her, only to collect data. Something inside Ilara cracked. Not grief, not anymore. Rage. The ambient temperature in the room spiked. The Tiffany lamp on the bedside table flickered. Nathaniel looked up sharply. "Ilara!" She turned. Her pupils were dilated, rimmed with a faint golden glow. The Aurelian gene no longer dormant. Awakening. "Where is Morgana Ravencroft?" Ilara's voice was calm. Too calm. "Ilara, you are not ready for where is she?" Nathaniel studied her face. He saw something there that made him pause. Not the grieving mother, not the gentle maid who sang lullabies. A survivor. The Obsidian Club, Midtown Manhattan. It is her fortress. "You are going after her," Ilara said. It was not a question. "I am taking my entire vanguard. We strike at noon. Vampires are weakest during daylight hours. She will not expect it." Ilara walked back to Lucian's crib. The baby slept peacefully, unaware of the storm gathering around him. She bent down, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "You will need more than a vanguard," Ilara said quietly. Nathaniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Ilara straightened. She unbuttoned the collar of her silk blouse, exposing the pale column of her throat. The pulse point beat with heavy, steady rhythm. "Morgana wanted me for my blood, for what it can do." Ilara's gold-rimmed eyes met Nathaniel's gray ones. "Let her fear what she tried to steal." Nathaniel went very still. His eyes flashed crimson. His fangs descended involuntarily. The scent of her. the pure, undiluted power of the Aurelian blood singing through her veins. It was overwhelming, intoxicating. "Ilara," he gritted out, gripping the edge of the changing table. "Do not offer this lightly. The bond it creates, it is permanent. You will be tied to my soul, and it will hurt." "Silas took 2 years of my life." Ilara's voice was steel. "Morgana sent someone to kill the baby I saved. I want them to feel what I felt." She stepped closer. "Take it, Nathaniel. Take it and burn her world down." Something in Nathaniel broke. 300 years of control, of discipline, shattered. He moved faster than human eyes could track, his arm wrapped around Ilara's waist, pulling her against his chest. His other hand tangled in her blonde hair, tilting her head back to expose her throat completely. "I will give you the world for this," he vowed against her skin. Then he bit down. Ilara gasped. The pain was sharp, immediate. 2 points of pressure that became fire. But almost instantly the pain transformed into something else. Heat. Burning liquid heat that flooded through her veins like electricity. Nathaniel groaned against her neck. The sound was raw, reverent. As the golden Aurelian blood hit his system, his entire body changed. The cool, unnatural temperature of vampire skin vanished, replaced by radiating heat. His muscles expanded, power flooding into every cell. The gray of his eyes swirled with molten gold and crimson. He was no longer just a vampire king. He was something ancient, primal, unstoppable. Ilara felt it too, the bond snapping into place, a connection deeper than thought. She could feel his heartbeat synchronizing with hers, could sense his emotions like they were her own. Awe, gratitude, fierce protective devotion, and beneath it all power, limitless power. Nathaniel pulled away slowly, breathing hard. A single drop of golden red blood lingered on his lower lip. His eyes were no longer just crimson. They swirled with cosmic gold. He pressed his forehead against Ilara's. Not romantic, not sexual, something deeper. A blood oath, a vow. "I will return to you and our son before nightfall," he whispered. "Our son." The words wrapped around Ilara's heart. She reached up, touching his face. "I will know if you are in trouble. The bond goes both ways." Nathaniel smiled. It was a terrifying expression, beautiful and deadly. "Then feel this, Ilara. Feel what your blood has given me, and know that anyone who threatens our family dies screaming." He left at 11 a.m. Ilara stood at the master bedroom window watching the convoy of black SUVs disappear down the tree-lined driveway. Nathaniel sat in the lead vehicle flanked by his elite guard. 20 vampires, battle-hardened, loyal, armed with Aurelian-enhanced strength. The estate fell silent. Marcus had tripled the security detail. Guards patrolled every entrance. The perimeter was locked down. Motion sensors, cameras, vampire sentries at every possible breach point. Ilara should have felt safe. Instead, her newly awakened Aurelian senses screamed warnings. She paced the nursery, Lucian sleeping peacefully in her arms. The baby was heavier now, nearly 8 pounds, thriving. 12:30 p.m. Nathaniel would be approaching the Obsidian Club by now. The assault would begin soon. Ilara pressed her hand to her chest. The blood bond hummed. She could feel him, distant but present, alive, preparing. 1 p.m. The ambient noise of the estate continued. Guards' footsteps, distant voices, the hum of security systems. 1:15. The footsteps outside her door stopped. Ilara froze. She extended her hearing the way Nathaniel had been teaching her, listening past the door into the hallway. Nothing. Absolute silence. The 2 guards stationed outside her suite were gone. Not relocated, gone. Ilara's heart began to race. She carefully laid Lucian in his crib. The baby stirred, but did not wake. She moved to the panic room Nathaniel had shown her. A reinforced steel door hidden behind a bookcase. Fingerprint access, designed to withstand a siege. The electronic lock on her bedroom door beeped. Someone was using an override code. Ilara grabbed the nearest heavy object, a bronze statue of a horse. She positioned herself between the door and Lucian's crib. The door swung open. A man stood in the doorway. Tactical gear, black on black. He looked like private security, corporate mercenary, but his eyes gave him away. Amber, glowing with predatory light. "Ilara Ashford," the man said. His voice was like grinding gravel. "Lady Ravencroft sends her regards." A second figure appeared behind him, then a third, an extraction team. "Hand over the Dampier," the leader continued, "and you will be permitted to walk out of here alive. We only require your blood, not your life. We can extract it comfortably at our facility." Ilara's grip tightened on the bronze statue. "You are not taking him, and you are not taking me." The leader sighed. "Humans are always so attached to things that do not belong to them." He drew a long silver blade from a hip sheath. "It makes this tedious." He moved with impossible speed. A blur aimed at her shoulder meant to incapacitate without killing. But Ilara was no longer entirely human. Time seemed to slow, the Aurelian gene flooding her system with adrenaline and enhanced perception. She saw the blade coming, saw the angle of attack. She dropped to her knees, clutching the statue. The blade whistled over her head, missing by inches. The assassin's eyes widened. Awakened reflexes. Interesting. He pivoted, bringing his boot down in a crushing arc aimed at her ribs. Ilara rolled backward. She swung the bronze statue upward with desperate strength. The heavy metal connected with his kneecap. Crack! The vampire hissed, stumbling. His leg buckled. Temporary damage. He would heal in minutes. But it bought her precious seconds. Ilara scrambled to her feet. The second attacker cut her off, grabbing her arm. She twisted, breaking his grip. Her hand found a crystal paperweight on the desk. She smashed it into his temple. He dropped. But there were three of them. The leader, knee already healing, grabbed her from behind. His arm locked around her throat. "Enough," he snarled. The third attacker moved toward Lucian's crib, blade raised. "No." Ilara's scream was raw. The leader's grip tightened, cutting off her air. "You have a choice, Aurelian. Come willingly, or we kill the child and then take you anyway." Ilara stopped struggling. The third attacker stood over Lucian's crib, silver blade poised above the sleeping infant. Lucian's violet eyes opened. The baby stared up at the weapon, uncomprehending. Ilara's mind raced. Nathaniel was miles away. The blood bond thrummed with his presence, but he could not teleport, could not save them instantly. She was alone. She made her choice. "Wait," she said, her voice steady, despite the terror coursing through her. "I will go with you, willingly. No fight." The leader's eyes narrowed. "Why the sudden cooperation?" "Because Morgana wants me healthy, cooperative, undamaged." Ilara's voice was cold calculation. "If you drag me out of here screaming and fighting, I will hurt myself. I will bite my tongue, scratch my skin, damage what she wants to study. My blood will be contaminated with stress hormones." She met the leader's amber eyes. "But if you let me say goodbye to the child properly, feed him one last time so my body does not go into shock from sudden separation, I will walk out of here without resistance. Morgana gets an intact, cooperative subject." The leader considered. It made tactical sense. A damaged, traumatized Aurelian was less valuable than a calm one. He nodded to the third attacker, who stepped back from the crib. "You have 2 minutes. Make it count." The leader released her throat. Ilara walked to the crib, moving slowly, non-threatening. She lifted Lucian, who began to fuss at being woken. She sat in the rocking chair and brought him to her breast. As the baby latched on, Ilara closed her eyes. She pressed her free hand to her chest, right over the place where the blood bond pulsed like a second heartbeat. And she pushed. Not words. Words would not travel through the bond. Instead, she sent pure emotion. Terror. Desperation. The image of Lucian's crib, the silver blade hovering, the impossible choice she was making. She sent the feeling of goodbye. She sent love. 2 blocks away, Nathaniel's head snapped up. He had been reviewing the assault plan with Marcus in the back of the SUV, going over building schematics one final time before the attack. The blood bond exploded with sensation. Ilara's terror slammed into him like a physical blow. The emotions were so intense, so visceral, that for a moment Nathaniel could not breathe. He saw through her eyes, felt what she felt. The assassins in the nursery, the blade over Lucian, the sacrifice she was about to make. His eyes went pure molten gold. "Turn around," Nathaniel said, his voice vibrating with barely contained fury. "Now!" Marcus started to protest. "Sir, the assault plan." "Now!" The driver executed a violent U-turn. Tires screamed. The convoy followed. In the nursery, Ilara gently unlatched Lucian from her breast. The baby had barely fed, confused by the short session. "I am sorry, sweet boy," she whispered, kissing his forehead. "Be strong. Your father is coming." She handed Lucian to the leader, her hands shaking. "Take care with him. He is innocent in all of this." The leader passed the infant to the second attacker, who held the baby awkwardly. "Now me," Ilara said, standing. "Let us go before—" The temperature in the room plummeted to freezing. The windows exploded inward in a shower of glass. Nathaniel Blackthorne stood in the shattered frame, backlit by afternoon sun. His eyes were blazing gold. His entire body radiated heat and power. He looked at the man holding his son, and he smiled. It was the last thing the assassin ever saw. The War Council convened at midnight. Marcus and 12 elite guards surrounded the mahogany desk covered in Manhattan building schematics. The Obsidian Club, 3 subterranean levels, reinforced concrete, blood wards, impregnable. Nathaniel stood at the head, still wearing blood-stained clothes from the nursery attack. "We strike at noon. Daylight weakens them." The door opened. Ilara entered wearing dark jeans and a black sweater, her eyes still rimmed with gold. "I am coming with you," she said. "No. The blood bond works both ways. I can channel power through it, amplify your strength from a distance." Marcus nodded. "Historically accurate, sir. Aurelian bonds were used as combat multipliers." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Every instinct screamed to lock her away safe, but tactically she was right. "You stay in the armored vehicle, surrounded by guards. You do not leave." Ilara nodded. "Agreed." Nathaniel touched her face with one blood-stained hand. Not romantic. A warrior's acknowledgement. "We end this tomorrow." The convoy left at 11:15 AM4. Black SUVs, Nathaniel in the lead vehicle. Ilara in the second, surrounded by armed guards. She pressed her hand to her chest. Through the blood bond she felt Nathaniel, focused, furious, coiled like a storm waiting to break. At 11:55 they stopped 2 blocks from the target. Nathaniel exited into noon sunlight. It should have burned. The Aurelian blood protected him, turning agony into mere discomfort. He looked back at Ilara's vehicle. Their eyes met through tinted glass. She closed her eyes, pressed both hands to her chest, pushed. Golden energy flooded through the bond. Nathaniel gasped. His eyes flared pure gold. Heat radiated from his skin in visible waves. He turned toward the Obsidian Club and walked through the reinforced steel doors like they were paper. The lobby erupted. Morgana's mercenaries opened fire, incendiary rounds designed to melt vampire flesh. The bullets flattened against Nathaniel's skin, dropped harmlessly to marble floors. He moved like a hurricane. Surgical, lethal. 300 years of experience combined with Aurelian strength. Each strike precisely placed, each opponent eliminated efficiently. Marcus and the elite guard swept in behind, securing the flanks. 2 blocks away, Ilara sat with eyes closed, hands pressed to her chest. She felt every impact Nathaniel took, pushed more power through the bond, wave after wave of golden energy. Her eyes blazed brighter, light leaked from her palms. Nathaniel tore through lobby defenses in 4 minutes. He ripped open the elevator doors manually, dropped 3 stories down the shaft, landed hard enough to crack concrete. Level -3. The corridor ahead lined with blood wards, ancient protective spells designed to kill vampires. Nathaniel walked forward. The wards flared crimson. His skin began to smoke. The pain was excruciating. 2 blocks away, Alara screamed. She thrust both hands forward, sending every reserve of power through the bond. Nathaniel roared. The golden aura exploded outward. The blood ward shattered like glass. He strode through, leaving glowing footprints on scorched stone. The council chamber doors loomed, 20 feet of oak and runes. Nathaniel's palm touched the wood. The doors exploded inward. Morgana Ravencroft sat at the head of a massive table surrounded by ancient council members. 4 sorcerers stood behind her, hands glowing with dark energy. "You violate the ancient accords," Morgana said calmly. "You will be executed." "The accords died when your dogs entered my son's nursery," Nathaniel replied. Morgana raised her hand. The sorcerers unleashed their assault. Blood magic designed to boil vampire blood turned bones to ash. The dark magic slammed into Nathaniel. He fell to one knee, pain like being burned alive from within. In the SUV, Alara convulsed. Blood ran from her nose. "Do not touch me," she gasped to the concerned guards. "He needs me." She pulled everything, every last drop of Aurelian power, sent it through the bond in one massive surge. Nathaniel's scream became a roar of defiance. The golden shield around him blazed. The dark magic dissipated against it. He rose, step by agonizing step, reached the first sorcerer, gripped his throat. The magical connection severed. The man dropped. The remaining sorcerers scattered. Nathaniel turned to Morgana. She stood abandoning her throne. This would be decided the old way. They clashed in the chamber's center. Speed versus strength. Centuries of experience versus raw Aurelian power. For 30 seconds, evenly matched. Then Nathaniel caught her wrist, drove her against the wall, his forearm across her throat. "You do not understand," Morgana said, strained but steady. "An Aurelian-fed Dhampir is a weapon. My son lives. That is what matters. 200 years ago, an Aurelian named Catherine fed her Dhampir twins." Morgana's eyes blazed with haunted memory. By age 10, they were monsters, killed for pleasure, no conscience. It took 50 years and thousands of deaths to stop them. Nathaniel's pressure eased slightly. "You hunted Alara for years," he said slowly. "As you have killed for centuries," Morgana shot back. "We both do terrible things for survival. I am just honest about it." Silence stretched. "I had a daughter once," Morgana whispered. "Dhampir, like your Lucian. Beautiful. Perfect." Her voice broke. "She killed 19 vampires before her 8th birthday. Good people, friends. I had to—" A tear slid down her cheek. "I had to kill my own daughter to save hundreds of others." Understanding crashed over Nathaniel. "You are not trying to prevent vampire genocide. You are trying to spare me from what you had to do. Can you guarantee your son will not become what my daughter became?" Morgana's voice was desperate. "Every Dhampir who survived on Aurelian blood became a monster. Every single one." "Then I will be the exception," Nathaniel said quietly. "I will raise him right. And if you fail, then I will be the one to stop him. That is a father's burden." Morgana searched his face, found absolute conviction. "You mean that?" she whispered. "You would kill your own son if necessary?" "I would. God help me, I would." A ghost of a smile crossed her lips. "Then perhaps there is hope." She relaxed against the wall. "I have lived 800 years. I am tired. Make it quick." Nathaniel's hand moved to her neck, positioned with surgical precision. "You were not a monster, Morgana. You were a mother who lost her way. But you still have to kill me." "Yes." "Then do it, and prove me wrong." One swift motion, merciful. Morgana's body went limp. He lowered her gently to the floor. Not an enemy, a mirror. The remaining council members fell to their knees. "I am the authority now," Nathaniel declared. "New order, coexistence, the hunt's end. Any who threaten Dampier children answer to me. Terrified agreement echoed through the chamber. Nathaniel walked out. The estate's grand foyer. Ilara stood holding Lucian. The baby's violet eyes tracked movement. The doors opened. Nathaniel entered covered in blood and ash. He crossed in 3 strides, reached not for Ilara, but for his son. Lucian came into his arms easily. Nathaniel pressed his face against the baby's soft hair. "I killed for you," he whispered. "You need to know what that cost." Ilara's hand rested on his shoulder. "He will know. I will make sure." Nathaniel looked at her. The maid who had saved a dying child. The mother who had found purpose. "We are not a normal family." "No," Ilara agreed, smiling. "We are not." She touched Lucian's tiny hand. The baby gripped her finger. A vampire king, an Aurelian, a Dampier prince, bound by blood and sacrifice. Family. 6 months later. The nursery was bright with toys and books. Lucian, now crawling and pulling himself to standing, knocked down a tower of blocks with delighted squeals. Nathaniel sat on the floor. Ilara watched from the rocking chair, wearing a simple gray dress. Guardian protector, equal authority, not lovers, something deeper, battle-forged partners. "I am signing the trust papers tomorrow," Nathaniel said. "Your legal authority over Lucian, permanent." "Thank you." Lucian pulled himself up, using Nathaniel's leg. The baby looked between them both. "I have been many things in 300 years, Nathaniel said quietly. "King, killer, emperor. But being a father, raising this child to be better than his blood says he should be, that is the one role I cannot fail." He held Lucian close. The sun set over the Hudson, violet and gold. Outside the gates, a figure watched from shadows. Ancient, patient. A whisper on the wind. The Aurelian heir lives. The prophecy begins. The old blood remembers. We are coming. The figure vanished. Inside, Lucian laughed. Ilara sang. Nathaniel held his son and believed in tomorrow. The battle was over. The war had just begun. But tonight they were safe. Together. Family.